Alright guys, and welcome back to another budget upgrade guide. We're doing a upgrade guide for Corrupting Influence. Our budget is $25. This is the second Commander Precon for Phyrexia OB1. So this deck focuses heavily on the new Toxic mechanic. It is a variation on Infect, so we're not going to put -1/-1 counters onto creatures with that battle with our toxic creatures, and we're also not dealing poison counters alone. We're hitting for both damage and poison counters, but the poison counters are limited to the toxic level of the character, the creature rather, and not dependent on that creature's power. Excel, Scion of Atraxa, is our default commander, and I think it's the one we're going to go with for the deck. It has Flying Vigilance and Toxic 2 with 2/5 for 4. I think it's pretty good. Once we have at least one opponent that has 3 poison counters, the Corrupted is going to trigger each of our end steps rather. We're going to force them to exile the top card of their library face down. We can look at those as long as they remain exiled and cast them as if we, had mana of whatever colors we need to. So the way we're going to upgrade this deck today is focusing on Proliferation of the toxic counters, or the poison counters rather. The way we're going to kind of strip it down a little bit is by taking out some kind of control-y defensive cards. We'll get into those as we, go through the 10 cards in, 10 cards out. But let's get started. So 10 cards out, right? Let's get this underway. Scavenging Ooze is our first. It really just doesn't fit the strategy. I mean, I know it can get big by exiling a card from a graveyard. If it was a creature, we get a little bigger, get a little bit of life. We kind of don't care, right? We're not here to have one big dude. This deck kind of wants to go a little wide and have a bunch of toxic things that they have to block. Graveyard removal is decent in specific matchups, but in a lot of matchups it's not that important, and I feel like he just doesn't specifically push our strategy, so he's out. Phyrexia. This is really out. We're going to target ourselves with it 9 times out of 10. It might be a finisher if someone's already up to 7 poison counters. But, paying 5 mana to draw 3, lose 3, and gain poison counters, especially with, Infect coming back, it's risky to do to yourself, and I don't feel like it's cost efficient to do it to another player. Culling Ritual is kind of a tough cut. We do make a lot of tokens in the deck, so we could easily play this and gain a bunch of mana to play some big spells, but honestly I don't feel like we have a lot of big X level spells in this deck, so we're gonna get rid of Culling Ritual. Not needed. Kind of in the same vein, when a creature we control dies with Moldover and Reclamation, we gain a life and draw a card. Would be really good if we were looking to sacrifice our creatures constantly, right? We were controlling when and how many creatures we control died. But that's really just not what the deck's going for. We do have some go wide stuff, It's not bad, but it's just not, again, what we're looking for, so getting rid of that. So we're kind of going to go wide, but 2 1/1 infects for 4 isn't great. It is an instant speed, so it kind of has that going for it. It's not a bad card again, right? None of these are bad cards, they're just not what we're looking for. So Carrion Call, you didn't make the cut, maybe next time. Windborn Muse, we're actually getting rid of a couple cards that are in this kind of same category. So one Born Muse is really just here to stall people. It could attack, you know, it has evasion in the form of flying. But we're not looking to stall. I want to kind of speed up our deck as opposed to slow down our opponents. You know, is that the right call? You know, time will tell. But for now, that's definitely the way we're going with it. Ghostly Prison is basically the same effect, but it's strapped to an enchantment instead of a body. It's a little harder to get rid of. But again, this aims to slow down our opponents, and I'm looking to speed us up instead. Norn's Annex is similar, right? You can get out for 3 mana and 2 life. You're looking to stall people from attacking you. They can either pay a single white, assuming they have white in their deck, or they could pay 2 life. But again, we're looking to speed up ourselves, not slow down others. 2 cards left to remove. One of them is Wormquake. So, Wormquake's gonna give us a 6/6 the first time we cast it. It is Tramply, it has Toxic 1. If, you know, we have multiple opponents that have 3 or more counters, we are getting a couple bigger, beefier boys. It's not bad, but, you know, 6 mana is a little expensive. You know, the creatures are going to just die to removal. There's a number of board wipes in here, so we're really not looking to have a bunch of creatures that need to stick around to be effective. It's definitely good late game. It could maybe kind of be a finisher. And if you flash it back, you're getting 10/10s instead of 6/6s. So, like, super expensive to flash it back. This would be something that, like, Culling Ritual would be useful for. But I don't see it being spectacular here. The final card is Phyrexia Rebirth. So this is a board wipe. It destroys all creatures. The deck does kind of go wide a little bit. It creates a single Phyrexian Horror. And yeah, having one big beefy dude is good in some decks. I don't think it's great in this deck. You know, we have a little bit of ways to make big beefy dudes good in the form of the Grafted Exoskeleton, right? Because now they have Infect. But, you know, it's not quite where we want it. I will say that if we were adding in Triumph of the Hordes, our big beefy creatures would be great. Unfortunately, Triumph of the Hordes is like half our budget. So if you want to go a Triumph of the Hordes route and kind of focus on big beefy creatures doing big beefy creature things, I think Triumph of the Hordes is great. It is, however, just an honorable mention for us this time. That being said, let's get into some of the cards that we are going to be adding to the deck. Planewide Celebration. Planewide Celebration is from back in War of the Spark. We get to choose 4 modes. We get to choose the same one more than once. Generally speaking, we are here to proliferate 4 times, right? So we're gonna basically be like, cool, you already have 6 poison counters. You are dead, right? This is gonna be a theme that we're running with. We're looking to add a lot of proliferation to the deck. Planewide Celebration is kind of a nice finisher, and even if we don't use it for proliferate all 4 times, we might want to gain a little bit of life back because we are in black and we're paying life to draw some cards. returning some specific permanents from our graveyard to our hands so we can recur them is pretty good. But the card is definitely being added for the Proliferate effect. Contagion Engine, rather, is kind of what I've chosen to go with over Triumph of the Hordes. They're a very similar price point, and I do feel like you could choose either or, right? When it enters the battlefield, we're going to put a -1/-1 on each creature a single opponent controls, and we can pay 4 to proliferate twice. The proliferate twice effect is definitely what we're here for. It will eventually destroy the creatures our specific opponent had whenever it entered. But the double proliferation for 4 is its choice. Staff of Completion is another one we're here for Proliferate. We're paying 3 life to do it. But it also acts as a mana rock. We can destroy things that we own, which we really don't want to do. We could draw cards, we could untap it. Staff of Completion is great. I'm really hoping to crack one whenever I open my box that I have coming for the set. If I don't, I might honestly just go ahead and buy the single. It's not super expensive. Necrogen Rot Priest is phenomenal. He's actually super cheap too. He's like, a quarter basically. He has Toxic 2. Whenever a creature weakens level Toxic deals damage to a player, they get an extra poison counter. Right, so if Necrogen Rot Priest hit a player, they would take 3 poison instead of just 2. And he makes it so all of our toxic creatures can gain Death Touch, making it so you kind of don't want to block them. And even if you are blocking them, you're dying to do so, right? We're clearing some of the way for our other creatures to get through for damage. Thirsting Roots is good early game to kind of give us that basic land, right? We're going to ramp up a little bit. And late game is a finisher. We could very easily proliferate for 1. And again, we're looking to proliferate as much as possible here. Infectious Bite is great for just getting that first poison counter on everybody. It's also a way to maybe remove. We could use it in combination with our Necrogen Rot Priest to be like, cool, all of my toxic things have Death Touch. My toxic thing just punched your, big beefy boy. It died. Now the wall is down and I can swing at you, get some poison counters on you, be good to go. We're proliferating a lot, right? So Scheming Aspirant. Little 1/3 each time we proliferate, each opponent loses 2 life and we gain 2 life. So you use this with the Contagion Engine, and every time we do it, they're losing 4, we're gaining 4. A little damage goes a long way. And we already have other ways in the deck to proliferate, just like by default. So Scheming Aspirant is basically a must-add. Speaking of proliferate effects, the Adaptive Spore Slinger. Singer, rather, not Slinger. They're not slinging spores, they're singing the spores. They're a 2/2 Vigilant Boy. We could either make something else a little bigger and beefier and give it Vigilance, but more often than not, we're doing this to proliferate. Just a nice sort of cheapy creature ad. But proliferating is going to help us get to our end goal. Again, we're trying to add that as much as possible within our budgetary constraints. Bloated Contaminator is Trampoline, which is great. Has Toxic 1 on a 4/4 body. And honestly, a 4/4 body for 3 is already decent. A 4/4 Trampoline body on 3, great. A 4/4 Trampoline Toxic 1 body for 3, phenomenal. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, which it almost certainly will, we get to proliferate. So really, it's effectively a Toxic 2 in that sense, right? We're hitting them for damage. They get a poison counter. Because we then dealt damage, we get to proliferate. And last, but certainly not least, Drowning Ichor. We're gonna -4/-4 a specific creature, and then we're gonna proliferate. The deck has a lot of board wiping potential, but not a whole lot of targeted removal. And again, because the deck kind of wants to go wide, I think Drowning Ichor is a good replacement for one or two of those, like wiping the whole field sort of situations. Let's go back to the deck real quick and take a look at some of the other ways that we can proliferate. So the Blightbelly Rat is a toxic 1/2/2. When it dies, proliferate, right? So, not a bad turn to play. We definitely don't want it to die until they already have at least one poison counter on them. Or, you know, everyone does, ideally. But a nice sort of early, like, little guy who, if they haven't managed to play any creatures yet, could, like, slip in and get that first toxic, and then it's off to the races. So this is giving us poison counters and proliferating. We like it. Pranker Bloom lets us, you know, kind of chump block, and then, because it was going to die anyways, just be like, haha, you're not getting through for damage, I'm going to sack it. You know, if they have a good artifact or enchantment, you know, maybe we get rid of that. But if we have a poison counter on everybody already, we're definitely, like, kind of leaning towards that proliferation. The Contaminated Grafter here is like, hey, one of your creatures deal damage to one or more players, immediately proliferate. The Evolution Sage is going to proliferate every time we have a landfall trigger. You know, so that should be, on average, you know, one a turn early. If we're getting good draws, you know, maybe we get to do it literally every turn. The Grateful Apparition is a little evasive, and whenever it deals damage, we get to proliferate. Norn's Choirmaster makes it so whenever our commander ETBs or attacks, we proliferate. It's also a pretty decent flying first strike 5/4 for 5, so... But repeatable proliferation is definitely the name of the game. We have a lot of it in the deck, we added even more, so... This is a one-off proliferation. It's kind of a kicker proliferation, right? So whatever it ETBs, we can pay 1 green if we do proliferate. And it's also a toxic 3 with a 4/4 body, so, you know, we're getting poison counters, we have proliferation. It kind of does both things that we really want to do with the deck. Expand the Sphere is great. So we can look at the top 6 cards. We're doing some card selection. We could add 2 lands from them to the battlefield tapped. Let's go to the bottom. If we didn't grab 2 lands, we get to proliferate the number equal to the difference. Right, so this could be ramp 2, ramp 1, proliferate 1, or proliferate 2. Unnatural Restoration here is going to allow us to recur a card from our grave to hand and then proliferate. Recursion's good, green-black's known for it. And we can easily do this with some of our Chi-Di creatures that, when they die, proliferate, or when they ETB, we're giving people poison counters. Bad Emergence is basically the same thing, only it goes to field. Contagion Clasp goes right alongside the Contagion Engine. Right, we're going to pay 4, tap it, and proliferate once. The Glistening Sphere is going to enter tapped and let us proliferate. And then it's also a big mana rock. Once one opponent has at least 3 poison counters on them, which we should be able to hit pretty quickly. We also have Karn's Bastion as a land, which lets us proliferate. So yeah, that's the deck. That's the strategy we're going for with it. You know, let me know your thoughts on it on the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this content and want to see more of it, go ahead and subscribe. We try and put out at least a video a week. Generally, they are deck techs from my personal collection. But we're doing budget upgrade guides now. $25 budgets for the precons. We'll have 5 for the March of the Machines. Until next time, guys. Good luck with those builds.